So Rupert Lowe has converted Restore Britain into a political party, which I think was a pretty sneaky move, actually, because he was saying, come and join Restore Britain. You can join in any party. We're not a political party. Even if you're in the Conservatives or Reform or anyone else, you can still be part of Restore and we can all be one big happy family. Then he says, we've now become a political party. So all of you people have now become a member of a political party. And so quite a few people will now be a member of two political parties and they need to choose which one. I suspect that was Rupert Lowe's plan all along, to do that. Certainly it was sneaky. Do I think it's wrong to do that? Borderline. Anyway, so he's launched the party. He launched it with a video. The production of the video was absolutely brilliant. I mean, it was absolutely fantastic. It's almost as good as our party election broadcast is going to be. So top marks there. And a lot of the things he said in it I would agree with. But what's tended to happen in our society is a polarizing effect of viewpoints. So you get some people in one camp, some people in another camp, and so you have to be in one team or another. It's as simple as that. But looking at Restore Britain, there are some areas of agreement, there are some areas of disagreement, and there was one very, very important area of disagreement between the Scottish Family Party and Restore Britain. So continue to watch to find out what that is.
And providing hundreds of qualified candidates to present to the British people at the next general election. This process has already started, with invitations being issued to patriots in aligned political parties, Reform, the Conservatives, the SDP, Advance, and more.
I mean, people will say Restore Britain, if it stands at the next election, will split the vote, make a Labour government more likely. The odds on a Labour government have gone up significantly. People tend to say political betting odds are actually a pretty good indicator. Anyway, the odds of a Labour government have gone up since Restore launched. That's not to say they shouldn't do it, but that's just the fact of the matter. I mean, Restore Britain formed, it's partly a policy disagreement with Nigel Farage, partly a personal falling out. I don't know what proportion of each were the factor, but anyway, here we are. Now, in that clip, it sounds like Rupert Lowe is extending an invitation to work in a spirit of cooperation with other parties. But that's not what he's saying at all. He's poaching people from other parties. He's saying, leave your party and come and join mine.
The men and women standing for Restore in that election will not be politicians. I promise you that.
Rupert Lowe's a politician? So this seems a bit strange. OK, we know what he means, though, don't we? It's a fair point. He wants people with other experience.
The first priority is to control who comes to our country, and more importantly, who stays in our country. Restore Britain will not just stop mass immigration, we will reverse it. Every single illegal migrant will be securely detained and then deported.
Detain and deport, that's our policy for illegal immigration as well. We don't put that front and centre the way that Rupert Lowe is, but it is something important is there in our policies. We're not an open borders party. And if you don't have open borders, you've got to accept enforcement of the borders that you have, and that's the only way to do it. But where people are deported to, if you don't know where they came from, well, okay, that can be a problem, but it's a problem that can be overcome.
For the foreseeable future, far more people must leave Britain than arrive.
Okay, mass net emigration. That sounds like a very dramatic target, doesn't it? Wow, that's going to be a huge change. But it's actually not that dramatic. Last year, 900,000 people came into the UK, including 150,000 Britons returning from being overseas, plus there were 50,000 illegal immigrants. And leaving the country were 700,000 people. So it's sort of not that far off. The way things are heading, net immigration has been going down and down in the last couple of years. So the way things are heading, net emigration is on its way in any case. Now, of course, Rupert Lowe is very big on this. He's going to slash immigration, but he's silent on the thing that has to go with that is where's the population coming from? You've got to be encouraging family life, boosting the birth rate and giving the UK a future, standing on its own 2 feet, not relying on mass immigration forever. But he doesn't seem to have anything to say on that. And the reason he hasn't got anything to say on it is that's not the audience he's appealing to. He's appealing basically to an anti-immigration and anti-immigrant audience. So he doesn't have anything to say on the other areas.
Restore Britain will make our communities safe again for women and children. That I promise you. If that means millions go, then millions go.
Okay, I'd say that's unfair. Really, the only danger to women and girls is not from immigrants. Okay, deport foreign rapists. I'm right behind all of that sort of thing. So it's a valid concern, but targeting it entirely towards immigrants is just unfair.
If you consistently refuse work, then you will lose your benefits.
Well, that's the current system. Has been for a very long time. Okay, I'm sure under a Labour government it's pretty sloppy and it could tighten up. Okay, fair enough. We're right behind it.
The state has definitively become the enemy of the people.
The state is not the enemy of the people. That's silly talk, really. It's quite dangerous talk as well. Fighting talk, almost a revolutionary talk. Notice saying the state is the enemy, not the current government, the state in general. But that's just not true. The state provides us with a health service, welfare, schools, bin collections, fixes the roads, etc. Okay, we might disagree with the government in a lot of areas, might disagree with their policies. We might have experiences where we're mistreated by the government in some ways as well. But to describe the state as the enemy of the people as a blanket statement, I think is hysterical.
Britain is a nation. Britain is a people, our people. And Restore Britain will never allow that to be erased.
This is the crucial section. He talks about our people. This is absolutely vital. What does he mean? Who are our people? Does it include immigrants? Does it include recent immigrants? Does it only include white people? Does it only include ancestrally British people? Does it only include Christians? Does it not include Muslims? Now, it said earlier on, Britain's not just a passport, so citizenship obviously isn't the key to being British in his mind. So every immigrant or non-white person is going to be anxious hearing about this, anxious and possibly alienated. And if Rupert Lowe was challenged on this, I know what he'd say. 99% certain, he would say, I don't care. And I would say, well, he should care. If you're going to talk about our people like this, it's absolutely vital that you're clear about what you mean. Rupert Lowe is not entirely clear. So let's go to Restore Britain's spokesman, campaigns director and spokesman. Shall we? Here he is, Charlie Downs. Let's see what he has to say. Britishness is first and foremost a matter of ancestry and lineage. The indigenous peoples of the British Isles are the English, Scottish, Welsh and Irish. It's as simple as that. Merely living in Britain, holding a British passport or believing in British values does not mean that you're actually British. Restore Britain is the only party that will say that without fear. He obviously classes people from the Republic of Ireland as being British as well. Anyway, so this is basically saying that immigrants are permanently outsiders in British society. There is no route to full membership and becoming British. If you like, they're constant, permanent, second-class citizens. If you think of the immigrants that you know, or people of a sort of immigrant background, would you be happy to say to them, you will actually never be British. You can never be British. Your children can never be British. Your grandchildren can never be British. You're just not one of us. Assuming that you watching are actually of ancestral British stock, you might well not be. Would you want to say that to people that you know? Because that's what is implied here. But that's what's stated here. It's what's stated. So let's let the Restore Britain spokesman carry on. A nation is a people, not a set of corporate style values. Okay, yeah, there's something in that. The British are not defined by our tolerance, openness and generosity. Okay, yeah, I agree. Okay, that's fine. We are defined by our indigenous ancestry and Christian faith. So Restore Britain's campaign director and spokesman says we are defined as British by indigenous ancestry from the British Isles and Christian faith. So the late Prince Philip, Duke of Edinburgh, well, he would definitely not be British on that basis. He was Greek, so he's not British. In fact, the whole royal family is not British on that basis. They're from German stock, all sorts. And this reflects the sort of thing you hear about from India, the Hindu nationalists in India, who say things like, if you're not a Hindu, you're not really Indian. If you want to be Indian, be a Hindu. And this sort of thinking results in a lot of violence and tension between Muslims and Hindus, between Christians and Hindus, and it makes India sometimes a place of persecution, for example, for Christians. Because if you're not Hindu, you're sort of a second-class citizen. Now, how about people with the ancestral British blood? What if there's a bit of Viking blood in there? When the Vikings were coming over, settling as well, back in the, I don't know, 6th, 7th, 8th century, whenever. So if you've got some of that blood in your veins, does that make you a bit less British? Or is that long enough ago? Is it just more recent? I mean, how about Rupert Lowe himself? Is he British? I mean, by ancestry, I assume so, but he's not Christian. So he's half British, I guess, is he? Got the ancestry, not got the Christian faith. Nigel Farage, he's of French ancestry, I understand, and he's not Christian either, so he's definitely not British, according to Restore Britain. So what we can glean about Restore Britain's approach to this issue, is it racist? Well, do they believe in the superiority of one racial group? No, there's no indication that's the case. Another definition of racism is supporting discrimination on the basis of race. Well, ancestrally British, is that a race? It's not really a race, is it? But do they seem to support discrimination on the basis of ancestry? I would say yes, that does seem to be what they're promoting, and I think that is wrong. So how are they going to decide who's British and who's not? Are you going to have some sort of system of classifying people? Do you have to get someone's family tree? And if you had just a great-grandparent who was Polish or something, what difference does that make? I mean, remember in history, there have been other groups that have tried to get family trees and create rules to decide who's properly a national of that nation or not. I mean, my take, what does it mean to be British or any other nationality? There are various factors. There isn't a strict definition, but I do believe one can become fully part of a nation without genetic heritage stretching back into the mists of time. And the prime example I would give of that is Queen Elizabeth II was British. Controversial though that might seem to say, on the basis of Restore Britain's philosophy, I believe that Queen Elizabeth II was British. So just to show you some of the chat around these issues. So Reform have candidates, spokespeople of various races, religions, which I think is absolutely right. So this is the Reform candidate campaigning for the by-election coming up. He's obviously got some Sikhs campaigning for him. And so-called Basil the Great on social media is mocking them for it, saying, what are you doing having Sikhs representing you? And we've had the same with the Family Party a bit. We've got Neil, our administrator. Sometimes he's done things online and you get people on saying, what you got someone like that on for? You need to have proper British people. When we had a black lady featuring in our party election broadcast, last Scottish election, the first comment on YouTube was F off back to Africa. Now, if we look at Neil, say, involved with the Family Party, would Restore Britain have him involved or been a candidate for them? I think the answer is no. No, they wouldn't. Or Gareth, who's South African, but Gareth's white, so maybe they would have him, but he's not ancestrally British, so maybe they wouldn't. I don't know. But this sort of mindset, it just builds up an us and them mentality. And I think Rupert Lowe is quite happy to do that because he will use us language like that repeatedly. The us is a subset of the people in the United Kingdom. So if you build up an us and them mentality, you build up tribal tension, basically conflict, and this can wreck nations in the longer term. Now you may say we've already got these tensions, we've already got this conflict, and to some degree I agree. We've got some serious problems and we need to try and deal with them. And deportation may be a significant part in dealing with those problems. If people are here, if they're not citizens and there's some reason to think that they're not making a positive contribution, then fine, people shouldn't be here. I'm absolutely behind that. But alongside that side, there needs to be an attempt to diffuse and integrate. Okay, there are lots of people here who don't seem to meet Restore Britain's criteria for being British, but we want them to integrate. Whereas this sort of language is counterproductive because it alienates vast swathes of the British population. It's counterproductive. Right, let's look at what Rupert Lowe's got to say. A total ban on all foreigners voting or standing in elections. Restore Britain will not be putting forward any Bangladeshi candidates. I promise you that. Now, what does he mean by a Bangladeshi candidate? I mean, someone, well, how about someone's a UK citizen? Is he saying, no, we can't have them? If he is saying that, that is racist. That is point blank racist. And remember, his definition of British is it doesn't depend on your passport. It's not about your passport. And his spokesman says it's about your ancestry and being a Christian. So that, the putting two and two together, this Rupert Lowe saying we're not going to have Bangladeshi candidates, racially Bangladeshi candidates. Don't care if they're citizens or not. They're not British, so they're not coming. But as well as being candidates, he says voting. Ban on all foreigners voting. Now, does he mean does he mean non-citizens? See, this is very unclear. He's playing with fire here. Now, if Restore Britain's spokesman is totally off script, then they need to sort him out and tell him that that's not actually the view of Restore Britain. But until they do that, I am perfectly justified in assuming that the spokesman for Restore Britain is the spokesman for Restore Britain.
We will celebrate our Christian heritage and the identity that built and shaped this country. Responsibility, restraint, forgiveness, duty, and fairness.
So recognising Christian tradition and heritage, right behind it. Great, really good. Why does Rupert Lowe want to do that? I suspect a large part of the reason is that Christianity has been used as a foil to Islam. He's basically saying we don't like Islam, so if that's that team, what team are we? We must be Team Christian. So Christianity is very important to us because we're not Muslim. I suspect that's a large part of what he's meaning there. Because when it comes to actual Christian values, I mean, the ones he outlines there, they're pretty vague and general, aren't they? But I don't see any real sign of Christian values from Rupert Lowe or from Restore Britain. I mean, pro-life, for example, assisted dying in the Westminster Parliament. Rupert Lowe voted in favour of it in principle, but then voted against it at the next vote. Abortion decriminalisation, one of the key moral issues of our time. Rupert Lowe didn't vote. He did not vote against abortion up to birth. Now, a lot of Christians really love it when someone says, oh, Christian heritage, a Christian nation, Christian tradition. Okay, I like that too, but it's not the important thing. I'm not so much interested in Christian identity as in righteousness. And saving lives, for example, is more important than something having a Christian label on it. See, I care about implementing Christian values because they will lead to a flourishing society. And I don't think Rupert Lowe is a Christian in any meaningful sense. That's not an insult, that's just an assessment of what he says. That just seems to be the case. I don't think he understands what Christian values really are. Now, out of his list of values, maybe forgiveness is slightly unique. Slightly a particular of Christianity. But let's see Rupert Lowe's Christian virtues in action, shall we? Here's a tweet from just the other day. Replying to a politician in another party. You're full of turquoise, S-H-I-T. And he finishes, reforms deportation is, well, you can read it for yourself. Now, to me, that's, he may as well just put on Twitter, I am not a Christian, I don't really understand what Christian values are. Anyway, that's basically belligerent, offensive, insulting, aggressive, bad language, and it's degrading of public debate. Now, I think the suggestion that he was going to be the standard bearer for Christian Britain, I don't really see it. Britain is a Christian country, and under a Restore Britain government, it will remain a Christian country. Well, not according to your spokesman, because Britain is already minority Christian. So most people, according to Restore Britain, most people in Britain are not British because they're not Christian. So how it will remain a Christian country, what that means, I really don't know. Unless, of course, he means, well, it's actually only the white British ancestry Christians who are really British. So if you look at just the British, then that's still a Christian country. I don't know. I don't know how to fit that all together.
That will mean defending our culture. That will mean resisting the relentless creep of radical Islam. That will mean banning the burqa, outlawing Sharia law, blocking cousin marriages, and reimposing our Christian-based rule of law. A Restore Britain government would legislate to ensure that no halal or kosher slaughter on British soil. This is Britain, and we will do things our way.
There are a lot of issues related to Islam in the UK, a lot of problems as well, a lot of questions about loyalty, integration, values. Sometimes I find at this point, people are quite keen to explain to me, do you know about Muslims believe this, that, and that? I know quite a lot about Islam and about the opinion of Muslims in Britain, so I'm not ignorant of the situation. But I think Rupert Lowe's approach here is basically 100% confrontational. This is conflict, this is a power struggle, and you can contrast that with the left-wing approach, which is basically if we just be nice enough, it'll all be fine. So yeah, there are some tough issues we need to deal with, some very serious concerns about some aspects of Muslim culture in some parts of the UK, but the aim has got to be a united society. Okay, maybe there'll be some deportations along the way. Maybe there'll be some people who are never going to integrate and they need to go for various reasons, but the ultimate aim is a united, harmonious society. So in approaching this, you really need the wisdom of Solomon to be able to deal with the issues decisively but fairly, but while not making it worse through being inflammatory. So when it says ban the burqa, no Sharia courts, no cousin marriage, no halal slaughter. So in his 7-minute video, he wants to mention these things that are obviously very, very important. But saying those things in that order, that's like against the Muslims, against the Muslims, against the Muslims, against the Muslims. He says radical Islam, but these will affect Muslims more widely. So that's likely to inflame and alienate. Now, some people will say, oh, they already hate us. They're already totally separate from us. There are probably some Muslims that's an accurate description, but there's an awful lot for whom that is not accurate at all. So just look at those. Ban the burqa, my personal opinion, I'm not sure. It's not a family party policy. I can see both sides. Sharia courts, I think if people want to submit themselves to some sort of religious authority, that's okay, so long as it doesn't supplant or lead to problematic decisions within a community. So yeah, I can see serious problems with Sharia courts. Cousin marriage, it's actually family party policy to not allow cousin marriage, not because we want to put Muslims in the eye, it's because of our wider marriage policy and for the well-being of children. Halal slaughter. Now that's an interesting one, isn't it? Because halal slaughter, generally the animal is stunned before the slaughter. So the Quranic incantation takes place and then the throat, etc. is cut and the animal dies, but it's been stunned first. So from an animal welfare point of view, halal slaughter, as it's practiced the vast majority of cases in the UK, you could say isn't a problem for animal welfare. I mean, to be honest, I still don't like it. I'm not entirely happy with my meat having an Islamic incantation said over it before it's slaughtered. So I will tend to avoid halal meat. If there's a restaurant that says halal on it, I'll likely to go to another one down the road if I can. Right, so that's halal. So if his priority is animal welfare, then halal really isn't that much of an issue. But then when it comes to kosher, now this of course is the Jews, the slaughter method that Jewish religion demands in some cases. With kosher, the animal cannot be stunned. It's much more strict than the Muslim version. Now, as I say, Rupert Lowe is not really an animal rights activist. He's an anti-immigration, so anti-immigrant sort of campaigner. That's his priority. So in kosher, in saying he's going to stop kosher slaughter, he's targeting Jews there. Now, concern about Muslims, there's a lot of things to be concerned about Islam in general in Britain, some aspects of Islam, grooming gangs, terrorism, etc., etc. With the Jews, what's the concern there? Why does he feel the need to have a bit of a poke at Jews there? So that raises a slight concern there. I did a spot of research online and came across this from last springtime.
I mean, in days gone by, you'd call it a Jewish camera, but that would be politically incorrect because it's so small. Career over in a second.
And I guess that makes me a little bit more concerned. I think on the political spectrum, if you start from the centre and head left, you don't have to go very far left before you start coming across anti-Semitism. And by the time you get to Jeremy Corbyn and the Greens, I mean, outright, blatant anti-Semitism. If you go right on the political spectrum, they tend to become more and more pro-Israel. So the Conservatives pro-Israel, and Reform, and maybe even more pro-Israel. Tommy Robinson, I mean, very, very pro-Israel. But then if you go beyond that, you get to groups that are anti-Semitic. So it's only the very, very extreme far right that is anti-Semitic. And seeing these two things, I'm concerned. I could be reassured. I could be reassured in the future. But at the moment, I have a concern. So let's just leave it there. So as I said, there are many real problems, real concerns about Muslims in Britain in terms of loyalty, values, democracy, terrorism, anti-Semitism, etc. Valid concerns. But of course, there's a big spectrum of Muslims with all sorts of opinions and attitudes towards the UK. I think Rupert Lowe's approach is likely to provoke more and more Muslims to militancy and to anti-British militancy. If you imagine a government came in and said, right, we're thinking about banning Catholic churches. That's what we're going to do. They're not proper British churches. We're going to ban Catholic churches. Every Catholic in the land, virtually, no matter how nominal, would think, what? I'm not having this. This is an outrage. Right, well, I'm going to go to church next Sunday. I'm going to show them I'm not having this. I'm going to be there. I'm a Catholic. So they'd be inflamed. They'd have gone from a pretty nominal, not really, okay, I think I'm a Catholic, we're not really bothered, but they would really be turned into militants by that sort of provocative gesture. And that's what's likely to happen with Muslims. So there are real issues, and good sensible responses are immigration restrictions, deportation in some cases, promoting open debate so that the tenets of Islam can be discussed freely. They're all positive things to do. And when it comes to integration, Rupert Lowe would tend to think, according to his spokesman, that can't happen. We'd say in the vast majority of places it could happen. We'd take active steps to encourage that. So we're aiming to solve the problem, and I feel Rupert Lowe is more trying to generate support through generating anger. And the last thing I say about Restore, I've talked about some points of agreement and disagreements, but there's a whole range of policies the Family Party has that Restore are just not interested in. I mean, Restore are basically another pro-abortion party. Some people engage in a lot of wishful thinking in this sort of area, and they say, oh no, they're probably pro-life because they seem nice and they talk about Christianity, so surely they're probably pro-life. But no. I mean, where does that feature in Rupert Lowe's values or priorities? And I think the answer is actually nowhere at all. So I would issue my usual challenge at this point and invite people to say, if they're thinking of supporting Restore Britain, is to say, I will support a party that would continue the mass killing of the unborn because I like Rupert Lowe. Or I will support a party that will continue the mass killing of the unborn because I'm concerned about Islam. Or I will support a party that would continue the mass killing of the unborn because I want to cut immigration. Or alternatively, you could just say, I support the Scottish Family Party, and we appreciate your support. And do chip into our election campaign fundraiser. There is a link below. And thanks for watching.